All right, so let's start with the glide flight, the successful glide flight that you did yesterday. Now, this wasn't a test that actually took your vehicles and took your pilots to the edge of space, but it was nonetheless one of these key tests, key milestones as you move closer to actual service right now. How quickly can you analyze that data, and what does that mean for next steps?
Well, the engineers are hard at work at analyzing yesterday's flight, which was a huge milestone for the company. It was the second standalone flight of the spaceship over Spaceport America, which is our new forward operating base or permanent operating base that we have in southern New Mexico. As you say, they're going to look at the data and look at that really intensively. And then assuming that we get through all the things that we need to get through there, we would then start preparing for our next flight, which we hope to be a rocket-powered flight from Spaceport America.
So when are we going to see actual commercial service launch? Is that still going to happen this year? Are you going to be sending Sir Richard Branson up to space before the year's out?
Well, we're working as hard as we can to get Richard up and all of our 600-plus customers on the experience that they hope to do. We're going to take that step by step, as we always do. And we're going to let the engineers really dictate the schedule. But we're making great progress. And the fact that we got this second flight off, also in the middle of COVID during a time which is, very busy, I think is a great testament to the work that the team can do and the operational protocols that we put in place to protect our team as we go forward.
Yeah. So now the service that you are working on is suborbital, but you had this news earlier this week that I guess in a sense sort of puts you in the orbital game as well, the Space Act agreement with NASA's Johnson Space Center to launch a training program essentially for private astronauts to be able to go to the International Space Station. When does this launch? What is involved? And who are the companies that you're speaking to about potential transportation to the ISS?
Well, obviously we have been focused on, and we remain focused on flying our passengers to space on board Spaceship Two, our vehicle. But we have been approached for many years by our existing customer base saying, some of them would love to go into orbit to visit the International Space Station. So now that we're on sort of the final run towards commercial operations with Spaceship Two, we felt like it was a good moment to take a look at this and to see whether we could sort of extend our brand into this area. And so the announcement that we made with this, which is another Space Act agreement with NASA around this partnership for orbital training and provision of services, is really exciting in that context, because what it does is it sets us up to become a player in the provision of that service. And, I think we're going to see folks from our existing customer base, people who are flying on Spaceship Two who want to potentially do that, as well as researchers and potentially even governments that are not currently involved into the International Space Station may want to fly as well. And so we'll be working with anyone who comes to us to sort of take them up and as you say, work with other partners on that experience.
From a financial standpoint, how big is this opportunity?
Well, the provision of human space flight, or rather, I guess, here's the way I would break it down, Morgan. NASA spends a few $1 billion a year on low Earth orbit human space flight, and that includes the International Space Station. So if you look at on a run rate of the next 10 years, NASA's going to be spending, several tens of billions of dollars in this area. Now, this is just an initial step into this area for us. But I think that the general area of orbital human spaceflight is a tremendous market, and if we can play a useful role in it in some way, I think it'll be an important area for the company.
Yeah, and of course this week as well, NASA put out a request for information in terms of suborbital flights. What is the information that you're going to provide, and what does that opportunity look like to start sending, I guess it sounds like NASA astronauts or astronauts on behalf of NASA to the edge of space in part for training?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm really excited about this one because, for a long time, NASA has been thinking about using suborbital vehicles, the ones that we've got, to train their astronauts and other NASA employees like researchers to go into space. And so what they announced this week is an RFI to sort of set up the process for an eventual procurement in that respect. And so you can just imagine, right now it takes a bit of time to go orbital. You have to wait for your slot and things like that. And so if we can play a useful role in that, I think it'd be tremendously exciting. I think it'd be really useful for NASA. We appreciate the partnership. And I think it's also very exciting and a great endorsement of that sort of step-by-step ecosystem of services. So you can talk about suborbital, you can talk about orbital, and you can eventually talk about going out to the moon or something like that. There's this great swell of activity now in commercial space, and when we see sort of two different things happening in that this week, which is terrific.